matter. And I have really cool episode about Uranus. Look at the midheaven, just crossed Uranus, and it is 29 degrees Taurus, ascendant 2 degrees Virgo. So Mercury ruler of ascendant is 17 degrees Libra. 17 is the number of Lilith. Moon is in the toxic 18 degree of Scorpio, which is fascinating. And Mars is in 17 degrees Cancer, which is also degree of Lilith. It's number of Lilith. Okay, so degree of Lilith, number of Lilith. This is not Saturn day, but actually Mercury night, and it's moon hour. Now Mars for my natal chart rules over the ruler of my housing, which is interesting. This episode is anyway about Uranus in your chart and the ruler of Uranus as where do you rebel in life? Now, Uranus in your chart in general is where you're revolutionary. Okay, I got Uranus in my 10th house, and it can tell. Like, I could say, yeah, I'm an astrologer. No, it's way beyond that. I'm doing it way big. Anyway, and um, I remember when Jupiter was in Taurus, I felt that there was a lot of revolutionary things happening around my garden, but I felt that this was Uranus going to my third house, which is Taurus. And then I saw that when things had to do with career, which is my 10th house, I would get like a little rebellion with the neighbors and stuff. And I'm like, why is that? And I didn't think much about it. Now when Jupiter is in my fourth house, and it's about to station retrogrades, of course I'm having the Eurekas around that. I realized that, yeah, the Jupiter of Taurus was just the rebellion that I have natally in my 10th house going into the third, whereas the Jupiter going, which is ruler of my natal Uranus, going to my fourth house, is very simply put the rebellion going into my house, housing, ancestry, view on death, housing in general, the motherland, and whatnot. So, and what is funny because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, it also rules Pisces, and in Pisces we have Neptune and we have Saturn. Saturn rules teeth, and as I was tending to my wisdom teeth with essential oils, I began to speak things that are revolutionary um, around for the topic of housing. So I also blew up my fucking house, like really, I blew up the city, blew up the country actually. When I think about this. And well, the ruler of my housing is opposing Pluto in the ninth house. So this is like international affairs to do with cults and spying, I guess, because that's what these cults do. I'm just tending to my wisdom teeth, man. But it's also a revolution around dentistry and with the fluoride. It's like I've been doing that shit for a while now. Um, and now I had this eureka. I mean, of course, the ruler of my revolution, Jupiter, which is also right now ruling teeth and stuff because of Saturn in Pisces, is in my fourth house. So of course it feels like Uranus has ingressed into my fourth house. That's because of Jupiter, okay? Because Jupiter is ruling my Uranus. And to take it, to take it from the self and to generalize it, for you to understand where you are rebellious, it's not enough to see a natal Uranus and your transit in Uranus. Also important to see where's Venus, which for me right now is in international relations, academy, school, worldview, religion, travel, and where is the ruler of your natal Uranus. Okay, so this is right now the four parts, unless you have in Uranus return and you're 80 or something. Right now, these are the 4 parts of rebellion in your chart, and they are there almost since birth. Okay, basically since Uranus changes sign. Okay, and all of these areas are areas where there is rebellion. Now, because Jupiter is ruler of my Uranus, is also ruler of my ascendant, I'm the rebel. Okay, which is fascinating because one like Virgo is my seventh house, and the Virgo generation that has Uranus in Virgo, I kind of like some of them would be people that I rebel against, but some of them could actually be people I rebel with. Like this is where, um, yeah, I understand now because compatibility in that sense would be a person that would have their Uranus ruled by a ruler of ascendant. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's like two rebels. That's the only way that they can work if they harmonize with each other in some way. I'm like, okay, that makes another type of sense. Uranus creates really unusual stuff. So, um, yeah. And so, and also the onset when it comes to Uranus, when I did my little rebellion in the house, the lot of fortune conjuncted Uranus again on the degree when I made the fated Uranus Beta Per Se talisman that I made. You have the video when I made the talisman, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I was associating that with something Uranian, and now that the moon is applying to oppose Uranus, the Eureka comes in, and I'm like, oh, of course. um, Now then the question is if your Uranus are in not good harmony with another person's Uranus, okay, think about, I'm Sag, so the Uranus Pisces, Uranus Virgos could have like friction. I guess like their revolution and my revolution are in friction. Um, then but with Uranus, that friction you could grow, okay, with that. Um, but that can denote of for the people that your revolution could be frictional with or people you're rebelling against. Okay, so and with Uranus against, you want to think about it as more oppositional, and you want to or oppositional or in a way where because Uranus is so unusual, the friction itself is unusual. Okay, Uranus in general comes to liberate us from certain notions, from some certain things. Um, but then the there are placements where that supposed liberation is not so liberating. And I was thinking about, oh well, when Uranus was squaring my own Uranus, it was conjuncting my Lilith, my Black Moon Lilith, and I went to on a very MK Ultra way. I went to rape, and I was just thinking about it. I was like, that was horrible, but hey, in my life, I, I won't have this conjunction again. And then it was like, this just Uranian. This is just what Uranus does, because it's kind of like you go your entire life trying to change the thing that changes everything. You're like, okay, that thing that was Uranus conjuncted my Lilith in my Uranus square Uranus. That little experience, that's not going to happen again in my chart. Okay, it's already past my Lilith. So it doesn't mean about anything good or bad that will happen in life. It's just kind of like, that's just what Uranus does. So we don't want to ignore the traumas associated with Uranus. Okay. And Uranus gives you form of extremity. Now, when Uranus is ruled by a planet like Jupiter, it's a big deal. Something that looks like someone blew it out of proportion is actually a big deal because it's the thing that changes everything. Okay? So you want to understand those rulers. You want to understand those rulers. Think about, the Me Too, where Uranus was in Aries with Aries. It was actually invented by Jay-Z that wanted to kick R. Kelly out. And we all know Jay-Z is, if we listen to Jago right, and I believe her. But the implication was that a lot of people were, okay, yes, in ways liberating something, even if it started in a malefic way, and nobody knew how it started back then. So Aries was more about like, I'm taking my sovereignty, I'm taking my this, I'm taking my that. Uranus is like, well, that's willing consent. There will be a genuine Holocaust to the entire Earth if it doesn't happen. I really hope that we won't need that. But also understanding after the Second World War, women got the right to vote and they could have bank account, okay? So that's pretty much what Uranus in Taurus does. Okay, it's kind of like, well, that's the value I have. I can set intention for it to be, and then that's it. Okay, when Uranus will ruin whatever needs to be ruined, and build whatever needs to be built, and free whatever needs to be freed. So Uranus in Venus sign is doing exactly that, but is also revealing the truth that stuff like the Me Too movement were invented by people that were at least towards Jaguar right, and many more people very likely sex offenders, and I believe Jaguar right. So I have the right to believe who the fuck I wanna, right? And forget the fact that she has evidence, because most people don't. And so, yeah. So this is one transiting Uranus. We understand what it does. It's kind of like, well, hey, yeah, the Me Too was lovely, but it started by sex offender, okay? And I believe he was. I believe he was because I believe Django right. And essentially, that's the guy that had the funding to do that. Now he gets back, okay? And it happened when Uranus was around this degree in Aries. Even a little bit before, okay? So again, Uranus, it created a general liberation movement, but the malefic intent was not neglected, okay? And then you think of the creation of a person like Jay-Z. I hope we won't have to get to the end of Uranus and the end of Gemini to know that. Of course, it is expandable child that grew, and if he didn't torture and rape and so on, then he would be dead, like Tupac. Tupac, right? But even before that, so when the children, then you say, what about Tupac? Well, it's probably somewhere in between. He's dead, okay, I know, but it's also true. He wouldn't be alive otherwise, I guess. So, I mean, Left Eye Lopez burned down a house. She was also Gemini. Both of them were Gemini. Okay, so and she just came to my mind after I blew up my entire city. um, but yeah, it's a giant explosion. Okay, Uranus is the rebel. It's energy. It's basically life energy. Whatever constrains it, Uranus liberates. Okay, and so the Uranus Lilith, for example, is like went through horrible stuff. What it caused was that I had to purge from me the murder of the soul. Okay, so at first I tried to purge it only in the person's heart. We did that because there was no therapy. There was nobody understood what the fuck happened. Because I mean, it's like either you want them to understand that this is MK Ultra and like continue to torture you, like my psychologist did eventually, or you want them to not understand you. Okay, that's basically how MK Ultra works. And but I had no idea. I just saw the weird thing that it did with the eye, and it felt like very weird things. But I said, okay, it's supposed to be something psychotic about me. Okay, like let's go through it myself. Okay, I must be fucking crazy. But no, they have this hypnotic commands and stuff like that that they are programmed, and then for they do this to others. And I was like, damn, it was just a person playing guitar on YouTube, living with their parents. And you see, he was living with his. He didn't have his own living space. And it's like it's German, so I cannot say living space. A home, house. He did not have that. Okay, he did not have that. And it was. And now I know it was the generation of Uranus in Scorpio. Okay, so and and then I would like spend I think a decade trying to figure what the fuck, and everybody would tell me that I'm oversensitive. Even in relationships, I was like, you're very, like, you're really, really sensitive. It's like, I'm not saying that to say you're oversensitive. It's like, but you're really sensitive to things that nobody's sensitive to. I'm like, yeah, that's happened. That's the torture of MK Ultra. But I didn't get that. Okay. I mean, yes, people are psychic in general. You're not supposed to get that through torture. But after the torture, I began to see faces. Like, there was a time where I could recognize things on the faces of people. I know my mother had that, and I became like her for a while. So you can see that's intergenerational, very likely. And it was, and I saw things from the wars. You didn't get that. And I began to merge with the person that was doing the torture. So that was like really fucked up. But then, because they were all the time angry, that I began to set boundaries to my mom. Okay, which eventually would lead me a decade later be going out of the home, and I'm like, that's really fucking torturous way to liberate oneself. Like and the thing that he was trying to control for my sexuality, I said no, I have sexuality where if I'm sexual, I need to have sex with love, because that's like the healthy way to do it basically. But they torture them so that they will have this connection. This is for sexpionage. I didn't know it until I heard someone who survived sexpionage in Russia, and Eliza, and she mentioned she was raped so that she will be able to have sex without love, and that's what he tried to do to me, and that backfired so harshly that the entire, like, I blew up the web. I don't remember where Uranus was, but I blew up the web. And nobody, and now when you want, nobody understood to talk about rape because people think about the physical, and then people wish you rape. Okay, they think they have a lesson to teach you, and I'm like, okay, that's so fucked up. And then you hear from rape victims that were psychological abuse victims and physical violence victims tell you, you know what, the part that I've been through, it's like what you've been through, that was the worst to me. And I'm like, well, the people you're saying you're trying to defend as rape victims, they're telling me, okay? And I'm not here to make what worse, what this, what that, but it's like, they're telling me. And I'm not trying to say what I've been through is better or worse. It's because it's like, I just try to heal. So I try to see, okay, if it's the closest to what people who go through rape, so let's try to see what modalities work for rape victims so they can, and I saw that there aren't any. So I was with the innovators that led through ability of people to heal from, I'm not saying I have all answers, but to heal from sexual violence or when they were raped, because there literally wasn't any. And then you go to psychologists and they're like, they're guilt. Of course there isn't any. Okay, they planned it from people to have to be born through rape, so that they don't even be born through the natural process, okay, willing consent process and so on, so that the babies will have trauma, so that they can enslave for this humanity. And it's like, of course, there are models to recover. They touch the core of the core of the core of the people, and they try to masquerade it so that the people remember the pedophilia and not remember for other things. Was this person that hurt me assassin? I don't know. You would just say I'm very moody. Okay. And I'm like, yeah, you know. But that was very, very frightening. Really frightening. And of course I blamed myself, because I was like, I behave like freak, so let's try to heal me. And nobody understood. There was no healing modalities, no nothing, until one man said he didn't understand what was it, but he told me, you know, I was doing that to women until one woman was so crazy to what she did to me. I never did this to anyone again. I still don't know if he was fooling me or playing with me or not, but I said, okay, he said, for the murder and the soul within, every time I will tend to the person that did that, not to hurt other men, because I didn't want to be like him. So that was my Uranus Lilith. And I was like, oh, what? That was my Uranus. Well, I'm never going to go through that one again. So, and the Telos is interesting, because I think Jupiter is now for releasing for, oh, it's about to apply again to trine Saturn, just on my Lilith. And I'm telling you what, my teeth. So to heal my teeth, I needed to talk about this. But I was like, I gave up talking about this, because I was like, nobody fucking understands what they do now, because now is the time where they try to do it to all people. So, yeah. And for your chart, you see where Uranus is natally, then the Uranus is transiting, which is all right now Venus for all of us to transit, but where Uranus is natally. The ruler of that, you want to look at rulership, you can look for rulership. I think I have an episode about this, if not, other astrologers have. You see which ruler is. And where the ruler goes through is where you're rebellious. Now, if let's say it's Mercury, which is faster moving, then you're rebellious in all areas of your life. Okay? Think about Donald Trump. Okay? He changed for prenuptial, then he changed for business, then he tried to change for nation, then it is, and that. It's both the Uranus, but Mercury is just like it's rebellious in all areas of life. I don't know him personally. Even with the taxation, okay? It's not just the prenuptial. When he buried his ex-wife, then he buried in the parking lot, and made this parking lot a graveyard to avoid taxation. But it's exposing for our system. So this very weird and bizarre acts exposed for our system, and are always controversial. Okay, so think about the Uranus Gemini and the Uranus Virgos, which was the age of electrocution. Um, like really, this was the expandable children age of um, the 60s. That was the 60s that everybody talks about. And they used it to create personalities and so on. But these are people that are rebellious in every field in their lives. Everything rebellious. Okay? Um, and Jupiter here is taking 1 year to go through a house. So while your rebellion is slow, it is more thorough. It's not like a Uranus transit, but it's like a mini Uranus transit. It's like your rebellious is slow, but it's more thorough. Both are important, okay? You think about the rebelliousness, about the little details in life. It can change your life, it can change your day. And then there are the things where you take something, and for 1 year, you make rebellion. Okay? We got a part of the cycle of the change in Uranus. And the fact that where Uranus is in your chart, you're rebellious, period. Whenever the moon goes through this, whatever it is, okay, you think about, I have Uranus in my 10th house. I never had a stable career, not to mention a stable job. And of my 3 parents, one survived being my parent. Other they live, but they're not living with me. Tenth and fourth house is also your parents and grandparents. Okay, I had people that try to disagree with me on religion, which is very very difficult because I'm possibilist. It's like in all religions we should abolish human sacrifice and all this rapey stuff because those are things they do inverted to control humanity. Doesn't matter what the religion. But would you argue with me about religion? It's the most stupid thing. But hey, I do stupid things too, but so yeah, this is fascinating. Um, if you have Uranus in Capricorn or Aquarius, Saturn is the ruler of your Uranus. Now that means that it's kind of like a Jupiter extended. You take a field, whatever status, you take a field in your life, and for 3 years you make rebellion in that field. So that can be extended amount of rebellion, and then you just ingress to the next part. So while you think about the Mercury, where you make small rebels every day. Every day you rebel in something, and it's lovely, and it goes from 1 month and then another month. There is a lot of cyclicity, and it's a non-linearity in that way. And then for the slower moving planets, it's like, well, these 3 years I dedicate myself to revolution in that area of life, and you don't decide that. But don't neglect the ruler of the planets in life in general. With the ruler of Uranus tells you where are you rebellious, and so and in that place where it is, it's not just where your Uranus is or where your Uranus is transiting, it's the ruler, and it acts like a Uranus. Now you want to unite for what this ruler rules. So let's say with me, it rules my midheaven. and rules my Ketu, and rules my Uranus, okay, and Cassandra asteroid, and many other weird things. And for my Pisces, it rules right now my Lilith and Saturn and Neptune. Okay, that's transiting. So all of these things combine, especially, Pisces, kind of like holistic medicine. And like, oh, well, let's try to rebel. Let's try to just go regular medicine without fluoride and, combine the two. It's like, yeah, but the anesthesia doesn't work if you're hungry. Okay, so let's treat it holistically. Then you put essential oils on your teeth, your wisdom teeth, and then every trauma you ever had, because every stagnation, it creates the caries. Okay, so every stagnation you ever had in your life, and stagnation is not because you're a lion or you're a bad person, it's because it's those types of traumas that you can't even talk to anyone because you gave up on the healing. And then you move the energy around, because what can you do? you know but I can't be hungry if I want to get tea treatment, right? And then something cracks at your home front, the relation to the grave, the motherland. It's like everything. I found that the ruler of Hesse was accused not of war crimes, but of crimes against peace. You think war crime is like a genocide? Crime against peace is exactly that enslavement of humanity. Okay. And I checked that because I remember I did the natal chart of Rutte when I just did it, and I said he is probably going to be remembered like Rudolf Hess. And I just said that, and I was like, well, who was Rudolf Hess in the Nazi party? And then I checked, and I was like, wow, it's true. He contributes to the WEF, and now head of NATO. I was like, wow, damn. But it's also, the expendable children that they tortured and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, to torture to survive. So I was like, okay, we really need to tend to expendable children to, how do you say it, reboot the Second World War. Okay. And not demonize for people to do that because they are those children. Okay, that's the thing. Okay, that's the thing. Undo the 22, uh, which is my 22 Mars. Okay, the moon is now applying to 40404 when I look at this. I don't know. I know 4 is foundation. Why 0404? Maybe reset. I say a lot. I reclaim. I say a lot reset in the sense of like my reset, not for the reset, but the whole argument around the displacement of humanity is Lucifer an argument that it comes to awaken humanity. So I'm like, okay, I'm humanity awakening. Like your mission, like you're not failing, you're succeeding, because if I'm awakening, you don't have to do that. Okay. So yes, this is my teeth story with my Uranus story. I realized I just put, and if you wonder what the oil, it was yarrow. Yarrow, I made the episode about the Kamazolan. Remember when I made the episode about the Kamazolan and I began to speak? It happened later. So was like angry, angry, and angry. And something that happened a while ago, suddenly I had an interference in my energy. It was like it's coming from the muckler, and I'm like, why? What? No. And then, of course, there was to set the boundary. Like sometimes people not aware that they can, I don't know, fantasize about someone, and I was like, okay, I don't want that. Thank you. But then I remember that they literally asked me if I'm sleeping with my mom. I have no idea where it comes from, but obviously it cannot come from his own internal thoughts or kinks or whatnot. It's very likely coming from conversation that was behind my back. And it's very likely not from like random people. It's like it's given the intelligence or something. Like it's given the same people that harmed my parent when they were living alone with me. And I'm like, that's given that's given that. Okay. Like, well, what are two people I know from intelligence? One was Idon Evo, which was the lecturer in academia, with the Me Too case. And I guess he really wanted his name out. And it's also liberating. It's going to Uranus soul. And sad is a T, but for the Uranus soul is liberating. Okay? So I guess it's like Uranus would make a face fear of being ridiculed or seen. So it's facing fear of being seen or being ridiculed. It's like, I mean, of course, they need ridiculous things, but it's also MK Ultra. When it comes to intelligence, they force them. Okay, you know, it's not like. So I guess this is what it serves. It's not about tarnishing name. It's about liberating from MK Ultra, because this to go like this cannot be. He will kill himself. He will continue and MK Ultra and not be able to express what happened to him. He will kill himself. And so this actually liberates. This actually is against. Okay, for I'm not here for to decide. There's no such thing as suicide, but I'm also not your murderer. Okay, like I'm not the one that kidnapped and so on and so forth. It's that cult. And I said it 2017. I say it again. And the psychologist that Itamar that everybody knows the name now. That's the person that is the juncture of kidnapping children, basically. It's a mini hotel. But he was doing for politics, and that the guy was doing from. I was like, when I got the calling to look at the Rutas chart, I was like, damn. But you know, I would say you have to decentralize the structure. Because I didn't know about, like, I know that there is a cult, but I didn't understand, like, what they think in and what it is. So, like, they have weird thoughts. Um, but but I didn't, like, until Mama versus Mafia Truly versus Khan, I didn't know that was the Ubermensch. Like, that's the Enlightenment. I was like, no, a free man need not oppress another. A free woman need not oppress another. That was what is supposed to be like the Freemasons, which is basically the architects. Because our architecture is supposed to support, it's like the womb outside the womb. And so, yeah. So those things, and perhaps this exposure can let out energy so people can recover. And so I can recover. My teeth would not. Back then, what was I healing back then? I had the sinus issue and I had like virus that I didn't know. It's a nervous system virus. And I was called to look at my feet. It took me a lot of time to look at that. And actually, even that Ido person, okay? I had maybe some of the personalities they said. So some of the personalities tried to help, the others to control. But it's inside them, they have the friction where the self-assassin. And I wrote about this because I felt this. So, So that is it's kind of like the fracture, and if for that happened because I was exposed to like those inner things. Um, then you go to psychologist. Of course, they don't understand what you're talking about. They say, "Why don't you set the person boundaries?" And it's like you don't understand what we're dealing with. And it's the structure, and it's the this, and it's the that, and then later they go through their own psychotic episode, and then they are like they get cold feet. So, and these people they try to fumble because they try to fumble with the fabric of reality, but they also have personalities that try to help because it's very difficult. They have to put a lot of energy to keep person like this. And then the parts in his personality, this is why the split, okay, when people say there's the split, the parts in personality really genuinely want to help, genuinely want to have connection, genuinely care, then they come out and it's so much so the person no longer believes them because of this friction and okay, and then people call it narcissist, but for most cases I think it's MK Ultra. That's their programming. And then they try to do it for the next, humanity and so on. And if you wonder why psychologists did not know about it, yes, they let out what people pushed for them to let out. So this is the power of the people, because if you push for them to let out, they will let out modalities that can cure narcissism. Now the psychologists themselves are MK Ultra, so they don't. Okay, you're dealing with that friction. My psychologist, the second one, Itamar, so he was trying to get me to get the part of me, the child. And how much he tried and so on, and says he would come out of the room but not in the room. Then I bought my stuffy, and then he began to torture me. And it's something they do for with energy, okay? And people who go through trauma are more susceptible to that, so they put people through trauma so that they can play with, so they can mold. And this happened to me also at work. Had a boss Benny at was at Royal Hotel, actually in the Dead Sea, and he also very likely was intelligent, so MK Ultra. And here he conversation between him and the security person, and he said security head of security, okay, and he said, I was looking for someone that I can mold their personality, and I'm like, I came here to be doing like human resources stuff, and and I'm like, I'm not the best administrator, like, as Hitler said, I could not be an officer, but I tried. Okay. Like, I can paint, I can do this as long as somebody expects of me, like yielding. I'm not a very good for industrialized society, okay? Maybe in the beginning, but more to revolutionize things, to create ideas, and to just ponder around the world. And yeah, I mean, I managed to make some income along the way, but not for industrialized society. And so I was like, yeah, they try to, and when I heard I overheard this conversation, I was like, he was looking for someone to mold their personality, and I was like, what kind of dumb fuckery is that? And of course, I skipped, I ran away. But the thing is that this thing done to them, so they try to pass it on. Okay, this is it's like this enslaving tradition, and this is how they can create for human relations. So from his perspective, he was not a hater of me. Okay, he was looking for, and the molding of the personality said, I wanted someone to stand up to me, and I'm like, get your kink elsewhere, like. Because I really didn't know whatever the fuck he wanted from me, but he had this, he wasn't looking for a secretary, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? But you have to understand, again, this was done to them. Even when we talk about sex workers and stuff like that, I think these things done to them as well. And it's a part of the rituals that they have in the cult to make someone feminine, which is, that's how they see feminine, which is fucked up. But then they talk about toxic femininity, but they do that. Okay. So it's those type of things. And see for the thing to come out, because this is what I would tend to my feet, and then they would try to push me away from tending to my feet because they see that a part of my a part of my toenail fungi is them, because they try, they are repressed, and so it creates ailment in the body. And then even in holistic medicine, they would blame the person for the ailment. Sometimes they do that still, and it's like, no, that's not the way around it. I mean, of course, the thought pattern is affected, but it's because the person doesn't have access to their mind, basically. Part of it is like, yeah, changing your mind and all these things and so on. And because the more they enslave humanity, the more intricacy you need to understand what the ailments of people are. That's why we have Neptune here. And Neptune, at this phase of Pisces, I noticed a lot, the anesthesia is problematic. And I have to say, before 2012, Neptune was still in Aquarius. In Israel, we had case, there was such bad conditions for the people who do anesthesia. And this is such a Neptune thing, there is lack, Neptune, of people who do anesthesia. Neptune, okay. And one of the doctors, I actually knew her after she was litigated. She was so exhausted that her mind, she was thinking, was not right. There was a child that was under anesthesia, and then the doctor wanted to sleep. She just turned off anesthesia and went to sleep. Okay. Now, some of these people, they work so hard that, like, concentration camp, the mind is no longer, decision making no longer. And she was in jail, and years after, only in recent years, I saw one of the time I saw in the airport, and she was with two dogs. She had one dog back then, and and when I ran into her, it was after that the child, of course, died. They had something in the heart, and something, they died. And usually they were not supposed to die. It was just supposed to sleep. It was nothing wrong was actually supposed to happen. Okay, but that was the case. I don't know if it was MK Ultra attempt to assassinate the child, or what, the child actually died, or they kidnapped the child, or what they buried. Like, this all kind of stuff. It's a kidnapped children as well, but the doctor might not to be aware of it. Again, Neptune. And so she was in jail. She didn't kill herself. She thought she would kill herself, but she didn't. And when I met her, she was working for one of the hotels that I was working at, not the Royal, but before that. And I saw she was genuinely making contemplation every day, and genuinely she was so stressed if something would happen wrong under her shift, because she was the doctor for the hotel. And that was just heartbreaking, because I knew it's more so the story of labor conditions than it is the story of medical negligence. And that was just one thing I ran into at work. And I've been talking a lot about the cure for cancer, okay, for the defined cure for cancer, and then research stopped. And I talk about terminally ill people, then they have for remission. I saw that in when I was doing my thesis proposal, but actually not through the research. I was just teaching someone German, and she was a doctor. She wanted to buy a house in Germany, and she was going to buy a house in Germany. And I said, okay, I can teach the basic German that I can, and say what I can teach, and I charge for this, so I can make some income, okay, even if I don't know the entire language. And so she heard about from my thesis proposal, and she was actually very cooperative, and she told me about her friend that is doing this research, terminal, I don't remember what type of cancer. And of course I'm not in contact with her, even not the phone, like not don't have the phone, don't remember the name or anything like that. It's for her safety also. But that was the thing. Now it's true that actual food and caring and so on that can cure a lot of cancer. But even if we talk about like a cure for cancer, even conventional medicine, yes, there has cure for cancer, many cures for cancer, and that could get people that are on the deathbed to go to remission. And remission is basically that you have no cancer. And then budget stops, people sick. Chemotherapy is torture. It's not medicine. Never been. And people normalize this. For the normalized through the excuse of it is like it is. Unfortunately, it becomes worse, we become more like MK Ultra. People become like zombies. And so, but a lot of people from system, they want to tell you, okay? They want to tell you, and they care. They care. So, and I guess both Jupiter and Mercury are children. So that is, I was been tending to expandable children before Jupiter hit Gemini, but for Gemini, satanic ritual abuse and so on, because Saturn, Satan, it's all this affecting my teeth. All this is affecting my teeth. So I tend to all this, and then, for example, it took 3 years before I did my first like removal of, that how do you say it? The thing that builds up in your teeth, and it took 3 years. And in those 3 years, I remembered, Feynman teacher. I finally understood what Feynman said about the teeth and the effect of the A-bombs and so on. And I was in Netherlands, and for the structure of the system, how it oppresses and enslaves people, and the homelessness, because Saturn is also homelessness. And only then I could remove otherwise I could not remove this. I had to both understand this and do activism about this. Then I could remove for this issue with the teeth. And now, first, like the deeper issues is for my traumas. And also when I talked about like the life of people that went traumas and the difficulty to self-care and so on. And now, so this is holistic, because holistic, it means so that it won't return. And when I was tending to my teeth, I actually learned this connection to the heart from a person who taught how to make, his name was Oji. He taught how to make honey with garlic, and he talked about it's improving for the heart, and he talked about the teeth health and its connection to the heart. So I learned a lot of things about teeth, and Saturn will be in my second house. I probably, it's not that I'm going to make income of, like I'm not a dentist, but maybe products or something like that. So I guess I'm trained in this way to tend to teach holistically, so I can teach that, or that is becoming a skill that I have to share by the time that Saturn Neptune hits my 12th house. So Saturn, you see Saturn come with what it does. Even if it's not benefic of sect, you can work with Denepalgadi, or by me is ruled by Mars, which is malefic of sect. But a Saturn karma is, if it's teeth, then it's that you speak, okay? That you find way to speak. This expression is tending to these things. Ancestry. Oh, the funny thing, I was, because working with the ancestry, and because of the MK Ultra stuff, so they make it difficult for you to communicate, to know who you're communicating with. And I was receiving channeling from someone who communicates with ancestors, and I saw one channeling from my grandmama, from my mama's side, Miriam, and she tried to work with me even before that, and then was cut off communication and so on. Because again, ancestors give you wisdom, and then you heal for what the cult tries to. It tries to do many disconnects, basically, and I felt a lot of her energy. Okay, actually, the family. I looked at chart of Makruta, and the family of my grandmother came, but it was benefic. It's not malefic, and then and memories from Odoliwan. So yes, but she asked for me to do the challenge was she asked for me to do something with her name that I will have for next to me, Miriam. So to carry her name, and then I put yarrow on my teeth, and I had exposed for the names of the people again. Okay, so I was like, because I'm like, it matters more like the structure. But I guess that I exposed for the names, it allows these people to correct karma, to release energy. Now they're exposed because they want to be exposed, okay? They're afraid of it, but they want to be exposed because there's something, it's waiting on their body. They go to torture, basically. And also, if we consider that the way we treat the people we deem crazy and the way we treat the people we deem criminal is for the way entire society would be treated. So this is also to consider, because the things for like jail system and hospitals, okay, but they need to change. So the understanding that it genuinely takes a lot of energy to invest in humanity so that it will do stupid can return in a roundabout way our faith in humanity. But yes, to make sure that the victims are safe, okay? Because it's true that the person who's perpetrated is even more. This, yes, of course, but we don't want to continue this chain of perpetration. And when it comes to like the hidden offenses, so housing first, independent of ability to work, and for no limited time, okay, as practiced in Finland, and to believe for the person of what they say, okay, to believe for the person. Then this cures schizophrenia, it cures psychosis. This helps with the good nutrition, like the fish and so on. Fish, okay, that has niacin, that goes for the cracked skin in the feet, and that the body is returning to, or the soul returning to the body. And that this is why having land is important, even just so you can walk your feet on something that's growing on the land. It balances the nervous system. And so the very basic needs that people say are greed, to have a house, to have land, I guess the basic needs for balancing of your nervous system, they're good to cure psychosis. And then a person less susceptible to this, mind control things. So you can see how for the academic, for the medicine, okay, all was recruited. Even for the physics, I heard complaint about German physics. She said she hated what's happening in a lot of parts of academia, and she said physics is stagnating. Okay, now of course, because people want to say, okay, yes, I'm not going to get into theories because I could be wrong, and so, but the essence of this stagnation is indeed because that would keep you from exploring the world, both spiritually and scientifically. Or they lie to you that for the medical experiments, the cruelty that they did is helping people, is helping our medicine, saving people's life. It's not for when you talk about like surgeries and stuff. Again, you don't need excess war to have discovery. And for most of these people, for internal medicine, then Then again, the way to do this humanely, even if needed, and again, you don't need excess war to create this, but the way to tend to this, we already have the tools to make it humane. Okay, so cure for cancer for what's given to people is no, there's no purpose in that. It's just torture for nothing. Okay, but for to control people. So all they tell you that this torture is responsible for your advancement and enlightening is no, because this is where we can, grow with love. And it's also the scientific advancement. Okay, it's basically to see the world from another point of view. Finally. Um, yes. And it's also true that there is, if you talk about cure for cancer and so on, it's also true that if we don't tend to the medical warfare that basically created cancer, okay, then then having cure for cancer is just compartmentalization that allows people to navigate with. Now we found the cure for cancer, which you're going to do, okay, but then put another ailment. It's the economy of disease. This I know also from Feynman when he talked about, he was in Caltech, I think, and he was sitting in the cafeteria, okay? And the cafeteria is good conversations if you're an academic person. We sit at the cafeteria, and he was physicist, but there were people that came from other departments, and he said, I sat with doctors that come with the best of cures to ailments you didn't think are curable, and I sat with doctors that are coming up with diseases that the desire is that nobody will be able to cure. This is Richard Feynman, okay, in his lectures. So, and by the way, he died of cancer. Okay, I believe it's through him that I got this information, because it's kind of like energy that assisted me when I was in academic structure, and then for the reason he died, because this calls like the memento mori, and then when you uncover for the reasoning behind the death, not unlike what is still happening with Peter, because Saturn is going to go over his midheaven. So the things that for the reasoning of the death, then it's kind of like I continue to correct this, okay? But also if things a person did wrong, then I also continue to correct this. And what Feynman did wrong had to do with communication type that they taught them in the cult, because they would be programmed, then the women that they would put there, they would be programmed. So whatever he would call, he would encounter women programmed, and they would program the women to basically be more attracted to person when they're treated cruelly. Okay, so an entire view on dating became inverted. When I think about 2007, yes, Chris was the name of person, but he basically through energy, okay, it's rape, okay, and of course it causes like disintegration of the psyche. But the thing is that he was like on purpose doing this. A part of him, not saying consciously, a part of him, and even tried to see what's going on with himself. But there was no therapy for him either, and he tried. And so I say this because it's energy that needs to release. That's also curating for the person. It's like releasing energy ties, I guess. And so basically what part of them was doing was basically to rape, and to say that like I told you so, that you can have sex without love. And I'm like, I can't. Okay, for the fact that I resisted that, okay, because I saw that what was coming up was the same people that people experience through rape. and that I called it rape and not called it sex, was changing because I was not accepting MK Ultra programming. It was not about him. Willing consent, standing for willing consent, saved my life. He was just trying to be a musician. Very talented even. But he didn't know maybe that musicians are being used as intelligence, and later some of them as politicians, some of them as, secret societies. It's like all of these things, and you can't get through to the people because you won't get exposure. Back then, YouTube was only beginning, so it was like I wasn't when it was dating site, but dating site transformed into kind of like social media type, and you would have video responses, and that was very nice. But that allowed one person to have like a lot of crowd and a lot of this and a lot of that. But then the MK Ultra got on him. This very likely what happened. And indeed, it was not a person that doesn't care or that does not no self-reflection, or it's not coming from that. And then he tried to understand why this happens to him. Maybe he's hurting like the way he hurt. It's like really weird shit. And a ton of dissociation because and that was a part of those moods. Okay, so that was the thing. And indeed, to make it like when people say if a narcissist, that the person is like nice to everybody, and then internally the people that they have a bit more communication with, and they can be hurtful or something like that. So that's very bad because that would make him give him a blockade around his outlook. What's happening to Jay-Z and Beyonce right now? Because now the entire thing that they built was upon bodies, basically, unfortunately, and there was no other way. They had to express for this creativity because the joy of living is creativity. Even people that are cruel do it to access their joy of living because this is the only way for they can access the sacral chakra. And unfortunately, they perpetuate towards try to liberate something. So,